Hashtag the basement flow is real. My name's Dave Can. And we are back again, and we've got a legendary person on the line. We always talk in hip-hop about the MC, but oftentimes the DJ is just as equipped. In the hashtag basement flow is real, the legendary DJ, Mr. C, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you coming out. Hashtag basement flow is real. When I think of hip-hop, I'm looking at hip-hop, and I think of the big three, the era. I come up in the era of the mid to late 80s. And at that time, there's almost no one bigger than what we're talking about at that era, which is Eric B. and Rakim, DJ Scott LaRock and KRS-One, and of course we got Big Daddy Kane and Mr. C. What was that like coming up in that era? First of all, that era, and second of all, you linking up with Kane.
Went to the same high school. I met Kane in high school, Savage A.L. High School in Brooklyn. I was actually DJing for another group that lived in the area where I lived, Mafia Garden Projects in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. I was DJing for a group called the Magnum Force, and I was in the lunchroom at Savage A.L. High School in Brooklyn. I was in the lunchroom, and there was a big crowd, like people it was a big crowd in the lunchroom, and I went over there to the crowd where everybody was crowded up at, and I seen this dude rapping. And he said this line. He said, "I got braids in my hair just like Stevie Wonder." And this is back. This is back in like maybe 85, 86. For somebody to say that kind of line, and he had braids at the time. So when he said that line, I was like, who is this guy? Whatever. Who is this guy that got this big crowd in the lunchroom or whatever? So, that's the first time I saw Kane. His name was MC Kane at the time, and then I would try. Even though I'm a DJ, like I said, I was with a group called the Magnum Force, and I would use their rhymes to battle rap other rappers at my high school. Even though I wasn't a rapper, I was using their raps or whatever. So, back in those days, that's when we used to bang on the tables,
right,
and bang on the lunchroom table and rap or whatever. So I used to battle other rappers at the high school and using my raps to battle cats. So this one cat, that I battled, I beat him in the battle, and he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna get MC Kane on you." I was like, I didn't. The lunchroom thing didn't happen at the time. You know what I'm saying, or whatever. So this dude came up to me. I would never forget. He came up to me with like a white leather jacket, and he pulled out a microphone out of his inside pocket. He pulled out a blue ELI mic out of his inside pocket. After the lunch period was over, I was like, "Yo, you want to battle?" And it was Kane. Nah. I was using my other rappers' raps. Nah, I'm good. I don't want to. So I thought he was crazy to just whip out a mic out of his inside leather pocket in high school. So. But then a couple weeks later, I heard him rap at the lunchroom table with the crowd or whatever. And then that's when I asked him to get down the microphone. I told him I had a crew around my way, come check me out, to see how I played, and check out my crew. And he was like, I don't really rap with anybody, I don't really mess with no group. I run solo. And I was like, just come around my way, just come check me and my crew out. So he came around and he heard me play, and he heard the rest of the crew, and then he got down with us. He got down with the Magnum Force. So it was like 5 MCs, and I was the DJ. And then slowly but surely, some of the other rappers in the group, they started pursuing, other careers as far as job careers, and a couple of cats in the group had babies, take care of families. So me and Kane stuck with it. And then, we met Biz Markie. And, Biz Markie hooked us up with the record deal, and, everything was, history from me.
What is that like when you're in, because at that time you guys are really, first of all, it's the MC and the DJ at that time were big. It's not, it's not really talked about that much now and much into the mid to late 90s. But what was that like in that era? You've got Eric B. Rakim, KRS, and Scott LaRock, although that didn't, Scott obviously got killed shortly after that. and as you and Kane. What was that? Was it competitive within that circle of emceeing, DJing, or was it just mutual respect and it kind of didn't really cut across those lines?
No, it was more mutual respect. You can't forget Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. You
That's
know
right.
what I mean?
That's right.
Two-man group at that time in the '80s that was real important to the culture. But yeah, it was more of a mutual respect than it being like a battle thing. We was everybody. Everybody that was a part of their own crew, whether it was Eric B. Rakim, Mr. C and Kane, the other two-man groups that you just mentioned, KRS-One and Scott Rock. We was really all into trying to do the best possible music that we could do. We wasn't really, and just speaking from me and Kane's point of view, we wasn't really focusing on what everybody else was doing. We was just really trying to put out the best possible music that we can possibly do. Actually, to be told, the original name of the group was supposed to be Big Daddy Kane and DJ Mr. C. That was the original name. And before we put out our first record, Something Funky Just Rounded with Biz, my name got dropped. But me and Kane was still signed as a group.
Right.
So even though my name wasn't kind of listed as Big Daddy Kane and Mr. C, I was still kind of signed with Kane as a group or whatever the case is. But at the last minute, Fly Ty, who was the guy that ran Coachella Records and Prism Records at the time, he decided to drop my name from the group name and just have it just be Big Daddy Kane or whatever the case is. And I didn't feel no way about it. I wasn't mad about it or whatever the case is, but we was just really concentrating on just doing the best possible music we could do. We wasn't really looking at anybody else and trying to trying to see what everybody else was doing. We was just trying to do our own thing.
Let me ask you this, Mr. C. We all know the MC back in those days, and we anticipated and we anticipate the albums. What is the process of the DJ while the album's being done? How influential are guys like yourself with a guy like Kane and the albums? Long Live the Kane, Daddy Thing. How influential is the DJ, and what is the process that the DJ does during the process of these albums?
Well, my job was to do the scratches. If Kane made a record like Raw, try to come up with some scratches in the hook that would coincide with what the title was, for the song. So, even with 8.5 Step and I'm the Big Daddy Kane, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Just doing those little scratches to coincide with the title of the record, you know what I mean, or whatever the case is. It's funny because I just put up an Instagram post a couple of days ago about how DJs like Chill Will and Barry B, who DJs for Dougie Fresh with the Get Fresh crew, they was a big, and Jam Master Jay as well, they was a big influence on me. At that time of how to scratch properly on records. And what I mean by scratch properly on records, but using the right type of stuff to scratch, the right type of words to scratch into a record to make those words correspond with what the record is about. So coming up, Chill Will and Barry B with Dougie Fresh and Jam Master Jay was a huge influence on me learning how to scratch properly on records. And you can listen to, like I said, 8.5 Step in Raw, The Wrath of Kane, how I scratched certain stuff in those songs that made it correspond with what Kane was talking about.
Right.
And that was totally my job. That was something that was totally left up to me. It wasn't like Kane said, put this in the record or put that in the record. I was in tune enough to kind of, come up with little stuff to scratch up during the chorus or whatever the case is. And the more we progressed, as far as making records together, the more that Kane did come up with certain ideas or whatever the case is. Like if you could get that a record like Smooth Operator, there is no scratches in Smooth Operator, but you hear the Rakim sample where he says, "'Cause I'm so smooth." You know what I'm saying? That was Kane's idea. You know what I mean? But it wasn't a scratch. It was like a sample, taking a sample from Rakim and putting "'Cause I'm so smooth" in the chorus. So it kind of turned into being for me doing scratches into actually Kane coming up with some ideas for the chorus to where I didn't really have to scratch up every chorus, so we can make it sound like it's a sample flying into the chorus and make it sound just a little bit cleaner or whatever. But we use all these courses and what we can use in those chorus of those songs, and a lot of that was, was my job to come up with those scratches for the chorus.
How was sampling back then? Was sampling a big deal? Did you have to be cautious of what you put in or scratched in a record at that time?
Sampling at that time was all best is on. We don't use anything and everything to make the record be as successful as possible as far as putting it together. There was no sampling issues back then. There was no, trying to clear records or whatever the case is. Back then in the 80s, everything was pretty rampant as far as using samples or using scratch hooks, using certain words from another record. We got away with murder back then as far as sampling and scratching certain words for hooks. There was no sample clearances back then.
Was there any? As a DJ, is it competitive? If you and Kane are doing a show, and say Eric B and Rakim doing a show the same night. We know that the lyricists like to outperform the lyricists. Everyone wants to have the hottest line, hottest bars. What does that go with the DJ? Is there some kind of subliminal game that you guys do, scratching, flipping records, or is it just, you guys just follow suit as your artist goes through?
I mean, we was just, there was no, if we was on the bill with Rakim and Eric B, or if we was on the bill with, Jagged Just Fresh Prince or whoever, like at that time, if we was EPMD, if we was going to do with any one of those guys, it was all about doing the best performance possible. It was about ripping that stage possible. It wasn't about any individual achievements. It wasn't about Kane trying to rip the next rapper. It wasn't about Mr. C trying to rip the next DJ. It was about me and Kane and Scoop and Scrap, our dancers, overall doing the best performance possible so our performance can be better than the next artist's performance.
Right.
So that's what we concentrated on, is giving the best performance possible, but doing it in a respectable way. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to please the concert goers.
Right.
And sometimes when you get into a competitive nature of trying to go up against somebody else, then you're taking it personal. So we're nothing like us about taking anything personal against any other artist. We just like, yo, we on the same show with De La Soul, or we on the same show with Public Enemy. We're gonna rip this bitch. We're gonna kill this stage. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that was our whole agenda, just doing the best show possible every concert that we was on, no matter who we was on the concert with.
Now, what was that like at that time? We're talking, 88, 89, 90, 91. Kane had a lot of success. You guys toured the world. You guys went everywhere. What was that experience like? What are some of the things that you saw, that you gathered from that time frame in itself in hip hop that maybe differentiates from what artists today may go through?
Well, I mean, back then it was, back then we really, every artist, most of the artists really took their show seriously, and there was, we really, just for instance, me and Kane, we had production behind our show. So, for instance, there was when Kane, we had a crown on stage that was in the shape of Kane's actual gold crown that he wore, and Kane would come, rising up into the crown. And the crown would open up, and then he would come downstairs, and the girls would go crazy, or whatever the case is. And then there was a scene where Kane would come out in the bathtub, with bubbles and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
We put production behind it. I remember even Dougie Fresh. You know what I'm saying? Like Dougie Fresh. Remember Dougie Fresh? He was labeled as the world's greatest entertainer, and I remember Dougie Fresh had a similar set to ours, to where he rose into a globe. Like a world globe. Like he would rise into the globe, and then the globe would open up, and then he would come down off of the globe and come to the stage. So it was, everybody had, Slick Rick had his crown to his throne. He comes sitting on the throne and stuff like that, Slick Rick the ruler. So everybody had different types of production based on their show, or whatever the case is, where you don't really see that as much today. With a lot of rappers, you got a lot of rappers that got 50 people on stage, or you got some rappers that do put production into it.
Right.
But it's it's not. You'll have some rappers that put video production into their show, or lights and explosions, but they're not doing anything. There's not, there's no props on stage. There's nothing, that's, it's just lights and smoke and mirrors.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying that's the big difference with today than when we was coming up. When we was coming up, we had actual props on stage that kind of corresponded with our, with our show or whatever the case is. And now it's just like a lot of rappers it's a video screen, it's smoke and it's explosions, and that's really about it.
What is the vibe like? Like for us, from the viewership from 10,000 feet back then, you guys were like superheroes. No one knew, I don't think at that point, where hip hop was going to go or be. We were still recording, Friday nights and Saturday nights, Chuck Chill Out and DJ Red Alert, just to get the newest songs. It wasn't being played on the radio during the daytime. What was the vibe like amongst everyone, amongst all of the artists that were out there? Because everyone's really on ground zero as this thing's building. Everyone's not going platinum yet or gold, although you guys did a couple of times. What is the vibe like among the industry and the artists at that time? Is there foresight in this thing going the way that it eventually did, or are you just going by day and seeing what happens?
It's a combination of both. You're going day by day. You know what I mean? Because it becomes a job. It becomes work. It becomes, you're putting your time and work in, so it becomes a job. But then you start, taking a step back and looking back at your accomplishments and stuff that you've done, whether, you're going to Soul Train Awards at the time, or you're going to American Music Awards at the time, like we did. And then you start looking at how bigger and bigger this thing is becoming. But as far as all the artists, some of our peers, it was a lot of fun. Like, we toured, we toured with De La Soul. I remember specifically we had a lot of fun touring with De La Soul, and a lot of laughs and jokes touring with them. Even with Public Enemy, as serious as Trick D is, and the S1Ws and Flavor Flav, Flavor Flav ain't serious, but, Terminator X and the rest of the crew, we had fun with them on tour. I remember specifically one time we did a tour, and we was on tour with Public Enemy, and they left Flavor Flav. They left him behind. We was in one town, they go to the next town. They left Flavor Flav behind, and Flav rode on our bus to the next city, and just had us dying laughing through the whole tour. So we got Flav from one city to the next city because Chip and them left Flav.
Right.
But it was all fun, man. Like, I remember, being on the road in the late 80s or maybe even 1990 with Digital Underground, and Tupac was, Digital Underground's hype man / dancer. We was having water fights with Digital Underground and Tupac.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just a lot of fun going on the road. It was, it wasn't, very, 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 very rare was it anything that became anything with a beef or anything like that. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
We had Kane on the show, and Kane mentioned that his albums, they kind of changed throughout the time, from Long Live the Kane, Daddy Thing, through the Taste of Chocolate, Prince of Darkness. Do you have any regrets or input that maybe you would have done differently back at that time as we transitioned from like 86, 87 into like 91, 92? Or, how do you look back on the way that kind of went with you and Kane? Is there anything that you would have liked to have done differently from a creative perspective, or do you guys think that the way that you did it was the way that you did it, and no regrets on it?
No, I mean, it's the gift and the curse. The way I looked at the way our career went was the gift and the curse, because it's like, Kane came out, we came out as pretty much a hardcore rap act. And then when we made records like Smooth Operating and I Get the Job Done, those records kind of transformed us to become more of a mainstream artist. The record company kind of forced Kane to making more of those type of records.
Right.
And then some of those records were successful. We had success with some of those records. In the mid '90s, we had a record called Very Special.
Right.
With Spinderella, which was a huge record for us, but to the core Kane fans, they looked at, you know, the transition that we was making, and he looked at it like we was, you know, like we was selling out or falling off or whatever kind of phrase you want to use. But if you look at hindsight 2020, like you know, what Kane did as far as, you know, making those type of records like Smooth Operator and I Get the Job Done, that was way before what Biggie did with Juicy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or, you know, that was way before what Ja Rule did in the 2000s. You know, they making those radio-friendly records with singing in it and stuff like that. So even though we took the hit as far as, you know, being the people, you know, being the scapegoats of crossing over, and I'm not really doing crossover because it's still black music, but, you know, being more mainstream and trying to cater more to that, we took the hit. If it wasn't for us taking that risk, you know, Biggie wouldn't have took the chance on making Juicy a Big Papa.
Right.
You know what I mean? Jay-Z wouldn't have took the chance on making Can't Knock the Hustle with Mary J. Blige. You know what I'm saying? Like, so somebody had to step in that realm and make that, start to make that transformation of making more radio friendly records, and we was one of the first ones to do it. It's just that we don't get the credit for being one of the first ones to do it.
Right.
We get the credit for, you know, crossing over into mainstream as opposed to setting the tone for what was getting ready to come in the 90s. So it's the gift of the curse. I mean, you know, what I would like our career to have lasted longer as far as remaining on a particular level with our core audience, absolutely. But we did what we did, and because of what we did, because of those two records, because of I Get the Job Done and Smooth Operator, you know, a lot of cats in the 90s wouldn't have been able to follow suit.
Right.
You know, Mary and Meth, or You're All I Need. The records wouldn't have been possible without the chance that Kane took, and even a Heavy D, like, you know, you put Heavy D in the mix too. If it wasn't for cats like Kane and Heavy D for those type of records that they made in the late 80s, early 90s, some of the more successful rappers that took it even further in the 90s and even the early 2000s wouldn't have been able to do it.
Right. No, I agree with you on that, because the records were crazy, and they did really give mainstream. Because remember, we're talking about a time at that time where you really weren't hearing a lot of hip hop on main radio. You really were getting a lot of it on a Friday, Saturday night until you got some of these songs that all of a sudden, you know, Smooth Operator, and they started to play. Let me ask you this: as we move, you mentioned Big. As we move from Kane, you know, there's a Brooklyn MC who lyrically he sounds almost as flamboyant, wordplay and sarcastic as Big Daddy Kane that you were actually involved in bringing up, and that's Notorious B.I.G. How did you come across Big, and what was that like?
Yeah, I met Biggie through his first DJ, 50 Grand. Me and 50 Grand, we grew up in the same neighborhood in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and 50 Grand was telling me about this kid that he had named Notorious Biggie Smalls. At the time, I was getting ready to tour with Kane. 50 Grand wanted me to hear this demo tape that he did with Biggie in his house, and he wanted me to listen to it. But at the time, I was getting ready to go on tour with Kane, so you know, whatever day I told 50 Grand I'll be back. Let's say if I told 50 Grand, yeah, I'll be back September 23rd. Come check me when I come back. That night that I came to 50 Grand was in front of my house,
right?
You know, with the demo tape, and so we you know, I listened to it. It was a cassette demo, and actually, Biggie, one of the demo raps that Biggie did was also the original sample that me and Big Daddy Kane used for Ain't No Half Step.
Right.
It's a song called Blind Alley by The Emotion. So Biggie actually used the original sample that me and Kane used for Ain't No Half Step for one of his raps. And when I heard the rap off that original sample from Ain't No Half Step, and that's what really grabbed me to Big. And with the demo that I heard from 50 Grand, it was very a very distorted video. I mean, very distorted audio. So we told 50 Grand about the idea about submitting the demo tape to the Source magazine. My man Matty C was doing this features on Unsigned Hype where you could submit demo tapes and with a possibility of getting a record deal. So
right.
250 Grand, we said we do the demo, have Biggie come to my house, we do the demo, and I'm gonna submit it to Matty for the Unsigned Hype thing in the Source magazine. So that's what we did. We did the demo, gave it to Matty C, and then they featured Biggie and 50 Grand in the Source magazine, and then a little while later, a guy named Puff Daddy was looking for an artist and contacted Matty C because he knew Matty was doing the own side hype, and he asked Matty who was the best rapper he had over there. Matty told him Biggie, and the first thing that Diddy asked Matty C was, well, how does he look? And Matty was like, he's not the best looking rapper, but he can rap his ass off. And then Diddy asked Matty, how do I contact him? And he's like, contact him through Mr. C. And then Diddy contacted me. We had a meeting actually with Town Records because Diddy was the A&R Uptown at the time. We had a meeting with Diddy at Uptown, and as soon as we walked in the meeting, Diddy speaking around like a cappella, no music, no nothing. And Biggie kicked the rhyme, and once Biggie kicked the rhyme, Diddy was like, I can have a record out on you by the summer. Would you be cool with that? And, then Biggie was like, yo, just talk to C, man. And that's how everything came about with Biggie did his deal with Puff. And, of course, the rest is history.
What did you think about Big when you first met him and you heard his wordplay? Was it reminiscent of Kane to you? And you guys coming up?
It was the second coming of Big Daddy Kane. Absolutely, it was the second. When I first heard him, it was like hearing Kane all over again in that lunchroom at Sarah J. Hill High School. It was like deja vu all over again. And Biggie was a humongous Big Daddy Kane fan. He was a huge Big Daddy Kane fan. If you look at any old videos of Big or any old photos of Big, you'll see a lot of pictures of Big wearing a black and white bandana.
Right.
That bandana is a Big Daddy Kane bandana. That was a bandana that we put out for the promotion of the Looks Like a Job album back in like '93. And I gave Big that bandana. He was begging me for it. So Big was a humongous Big Daddy Kane fan, but he was also a student of hip hop as well. He loved Scarface. He loved, he loved out of town rappers.
Right.
He was like one of the first rappers from New York that I knew that loved rappers from out of town. Because back then it was like taboo to say that you're from Brooklyn, say you're from New York, and say that you like artists from out of town. So the Big was not afraid to tell me that he liked Scarface or he liked Ghetto Boys or he liked Bone Thugs and Harmony. That's why he did the record with Bone Thugs, because he liked them.
Right.
Whatever the case is. He really loved artists from out of town. Too Short. He was a real big fan of rappers from out of town. So, but he was a student of the game, and he was a huge Big Daddy Kane fan. So it was like hearing Kane all over again.
Did Kane mention that he talked to Big a few times on the phone? Did it seem weird? You got two guys from Brooklyn. One is closing out an era, and the other is about to start a whole era. And their style is very, 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 very similar. Did it feel a little weird, Kane wise with that? Was he willing to kind of pass that kind of crown, so to speak?
Truth be told, the very first person I ever let hear Big was Kane. Kane is the very first person that I let. Kane, Scoop, and Scrap. They was the first people that I ever, when I redid that demo and everything, the first people I let hear that demo was Kane, Scoop, and Scrap. We was on tour, and I let them hear it. And Kane, Scoop, and Scrap, they all love Biggie. They love his style or whatever the case is. Kane at the time was also, kind of working with Jay-Z.
Right.
Jay-Z was going on tour with us at the time as well, early on. So, I was trying to get Big, I was trying to get Kane to work with Big. Kane at the time was working with Jay-Z and Source Money. So, his focus was really on them. So I had to start going in another direction as far as trying to get Big out there or whatever the case is. But, the passing the torch, so to speak, I guess the best way or the best thing that you can describe as far as the passing of the torch that Kane gave to Biggie is when he brought Biggie and Tupac on stage for the Budweiser Superfest back in October of 1993. That's the infamous
Yes.
performance with Biggie Stage Off. We're in Brooklyn at
Right. That you recorded. You actually recorded that. No one else had to record but you, according to people out there. Is that right?
Yeah, I recorded that at Madison Square Garden. I recorded it on a 120-minute cassette tape because we was on the Budweiser Superfest, and I went to the sound man and begged him, like, because you really don't supposed to record live. It's kind of illegal to record live performances, but I begged the sound man to let me record it, and he let me record it on a 120-minute cassette. 1 hour on one side, 1 hour on the other side. I just wanted to make sure I had enough time to get, all the audio that I can get from that show.
Right.
And I recorded it, and it was, you see, what happened, and even in 2018, it's still a memorable, it's still, to this day, you play that in the club, and it still gets a great response in the club. So, but that's all courtesy of Kane bringing out Biggie and Tupac and Shaheem and Fat Joe. Because it wasn't just Tupac and Biggie brought out that night. It was Shaheem and Fat Joe and, or whatever the case is. So, that was Kane passing the torch, even though, he didn't make it official of that what he was doing, but that's exactly what happened.
Did you feel like at that time, you've got you're coming off of a golden era with the Big Three in the 80s, and right around this time you got Nas already drops an album, Big's coming out, and as you mentioned, Kane's working with Jay-Z. Did you see at that time that this could be the next era, that these guys could be the next grounded in terms of lyricism, style, and influence? Or because there was a lot of people throwing their name in the hats back then in terms of putting out projects. Did you identify Big, Jay, and Nas in that group as being the next Big Three or big things coming up?
I thought Big was a great rapper and he had potential. I thought Jay-Z was a great rapper and he had potential. But I didn't think they was going to be what they became. Even before the Big and the Jay-Z's and the Nas, like, you had people like Brand Nubian and the Tribe Called Quest and Onyx, leaders of the new school. You had Pete Rock and CL Smooth. You had a whole chain of artists that kind of came out in those mid-90s, mostly rap groups,
right?
That was successful before the transition of Biggie, Jay-Z, and Nas. So, I was really thinking more of those lines, that those artists that I just mentioned was the potential of becoming great because they had success. You know what I'm saying? Big, Jay-Z, Nas early on didn't, they was coming up. So I didn't think that they was going to be who they are now. I just knew that they was great. They was dope rappers. But because of all the other artists that was hot at the time, like who I just mentioned, Tribe, Pete Rock, CL Smooth, Brand Nubian, Onyx, they was the great Naughty by Nature. Let's not forget about them. They was the great artists at the time. So when somebody else is kind of on top for the moment, you're not really thinking about that these people is going to be the next great. You're thinking they're going to be successful. You think they're going to be dope, but you're not thinking that they're going to be great. You know what I mean? Like that thought process at that time. That wasn't the thought process. It was more like, this Big is dope. He reminds me of Kane. I think he's going to be something. Right. You know what I mean? Hove is dope. You know what I mean? He can rhyme. I think he could be something. But to say they're going to be great and they're going to be legends and they're going to, you're not thinking like that early on, especially in the midst of all the other stuff that was happening in hip hop at the time with the other rap groups that I just mentioned to you that was successful. Right. You're not thinking like that at the time.
When you heard Ready to Die, when Ready to Die comes out, because at some point, Big does, Source Magazine's got him, King of New York, it does look like the momentum sways. At what point during Ready to Die did you see the transition? Because, Juicy was a big record, Big Papa was a big record. Did you start seeing flashes of that literal?
Well, I started seeing flashes of the greatness of what possibly the album, because you got to remember, I was involved in the recording process. Right. So, I started seeing the progress of the greatness of Big, of what it could become during the recording process, and hearing, Ready to Die was one of the first songs recorded on the album, which I did scratches on. Give Me the Loot, those are songs that was recorded early on. So I started seeing the greatness of Big during the recording process of Ready to Die, as opposed to when the album came out. When I started hearing these records early on, when we was recording these records, then that's when it started kicking out. It's like, yo, this dude right here is on a different planet. Like this dude, this is going to be something. This is not like anything I've heard up until this point, and I'm like, this is going to be something. So that's when I really started recognizing that this Ready to Die and Biggie himself could be great is during the recording process of Ready to Die, not when it came out.
Right.
By the time it came out, and everybody was all hyped over it, I was already like, yeah, just now witnessing what I've kind of saw during the recording process. And it was slowly but surely, because the more records that Big did, remember, he was on Real Love with Mary J. Blige before the album came out.
Right.
Remember, he did Party and Bullshit before the album came out. So the more these type of records came out, the more I started seeing and hearing the greatness of what was getting ready to be developed with Biggie.
Let me ask you this: see how, and you've done this on both ends. How important is the single, what you drop? I mean, if Big drops, which this wouldn't happen, but if he drops the What hypothetically versus Juicy, does it change the direction? How influential on an album? Because Ready to Die really has a lot of dark songs on it, but the stuff that you hear on the radio, the Big Poppas, the Juicies, the stuff that was released had a lighter tone. Does the single sometimes really, from a marketing and a DJ, and you've done radio for a long time, does the single really push the artist and the record that much, or is it not as influential and is really just the product of the album?
Well, yeah, I mean, at that time it was huge because it was Puff Daddy Diddy's vision. If it wasn't for Diddy having that vision to convince Biggie to make a record like Juicy and Big Papa, Biggie might have just been another successful New York street rapper,
right?
As opposed to being listed as one of the greatest rappers of all time. Well, you know what I mean, or whatever the case is. So you got to give credit to Diddy for convincing Biggie to do Juicy and Big Papa. Biggie didn't want to do those records. He didn't want to rhyme on an M2 main record or rhyme on an Ozzy Brothers record. That was all Puff convincing them, like, yo, these records are going to take you to another level. You can give me Who Shot You on the B-side. You can give me Unbelievable on the B-side, but I need something to take to radio. And you have to remember, this was also the early stages of Hot 97, which was the first 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, all hip-hop radio station. So Puff saw something. The marriage of Bad Boy and Hot 97 at the time was like huge because Puff saw the opportunity of what Hot 97 was becoming as far as it being a 24-hour, the first ever full 24-hour radio station, 7 days a week. And he took advantage of the fact that if I give them a record that could be played at 2 p.m, I'm going to hit a home run. So it was perfect timing, not only with making those type of records, but also with the early stages of having a record, of having a radio station in your backyard in New York, in your own back, that you could just walk to the radio station, bring the record to a Funkmaster Flex, and get it on, and it's over. I don't think people really understand the dynamic that Puffy had and how it coincided with the early stages of Hot 97. It kind of all worked hand in hand, to where Bad Boy became successful because of Hot 97, and Hot 97 became successful off of Bad Boy.
Right.
You know what I mean, or whatever the case is. And it was very important at that time. Hot 97 came into the market in '93, and then the very next year, Biggie, had that, Puff and Big dropped Juicy and take it up to Funkmaster Flex, and the rest is history. You know what I mean, or whatever the case is. So, and there was no other radio station like that at the time. We take for granted that there's 1,000,001 24-hour hip-hop radio stations now in 2018, but back in '94, Hot 97 was the only station in the country
that
was playing hip-hop 24 hours a day. So that marriage also, helped a great deal as well.
We see a lot, especially lately. There's been a lot of Death Row Chronicles on Death Row Records. Tupac's movie came out last year, and we know how everything played out from a viewership's perspective. But what was Big's perspective on the Bad Boy Death Row situation. When that was going on, we hear, Pac's got a bunch of interviews where he says a bunch of stuff. What was Big's, because Big was very quiet on that, and Bad Boy seemed like they were too. What was his perspective on that when it was going on? Did he think that that was something that would kind of phase out eventually?
No, I mean, at one point, in the early stages of the whole conflict with him and Pac, or Pac starting the conflict, or whatever the case is. Puff Biggie wanted to get at Pac, and he wanted to go back at him and diss him, or whatever the case is. And there was people like Puff that convinced Biggie not to retaliate, or whatever the case is. So it turned into Biggie wanting to retaliate into, man, I'm not even going to be bothered. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and that's that, or whatever the case is. So don't get it messed up. Big wanted to retaliate and get back at Pac, but Puff is the one that really kept Biggie in check of not responding. And then once Biggie realized that it wasn't at his best interest to not respond, he just kept doing what he was doing, making the hit records and doing what he was, and recording the next album, the Life After Death album.
Let me ask you this. I'm gonna give you a theory of mine, all right? And I was telling someone this the other day, and you're in there, so you know more about this than me. But this is just a theory. Tell me what you think. In my opinion, if Big does respond, if he does do some sort of song back, Hit 'Em Up was very aggressive. It had a lot of anger, and it really made it seem like a street thing. Biggie's always been like a sarcastic. Biggie had the line where he said, "If Faith had twins, she probably have two Pacs." My opinion is, if Biggie does respond, it's probably going to be something sarcastic. It'll probably be something to make people poke and laugh at Pac a little bit on. And I think that may have eased some of the tension, because it just seemed like it just seemed like a road rage coming from Death Row and Death Row and Tupac and the gang affiliations. And it just seemed like it was so much, riding on it, that, the tension and the atmosphere seemed like it may have gone to where a guy can feel so comfortable. And I'm a big Pac fan, by the way, but a guy may feel so comfortable that he may go at someone that tried to snatch a Death Row chain, and eventually, it gets to how it got. Do you think that maybe if there was a response, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but if there was a response, maybe some of that tension would have eased up, because Death Row wouldn't have looked so maybe invincible, I guess is the term. What do you say to any of that?
You may have a point. I don't know if Biggie would have came back with some sarcastic, funny shit. I don't know. I don't know if he would have came back like that. Because Big was he was in angry mode. He wasn't in his. Biggie's a very jovial, very funny person. Like, a lot of people don't really get to know that about Big, but he's very funny, always laughing and joking.
Right.
He wasn't in a laughing, joking mood when all of that was going down with Pac. He was in a I'm ready to go to war mode. You know what I mean? Whether it's face to face or whether it's on record, he was in that type of mode. So you might be right. Hindsight 2020 might be right if he responds, and maybe maybe it would have just stayed on wax or whatever the case is or what have you. But but it overall, man, the thing just got so way out of hand that it got past the two rappers, and it just got way out of hand where it got to so many cliques and crews and gangs, like you said, and street niggas and stuff like that. It got way past the two individuals that there was no point of return. If one person could have just put Big and Pac in a room to talk, it wouldn't have escalated to what it escalated to. But it never really got to that point where somebody can get to both of them to put them in one room to talk, or whatever the case is. It got way past them two. It got to the street, and once it got to the street, it got out of hand.
Do you think that was an option? Do you think that, from Big's standpoint, would that have been an option for them to talk and just reconcile the whole thing? Or was even on the East Coast end, was it more like, the guy's doing songs on me, I'm done, let's just keep it moving? Or do you think that there would have been some reasonable activity where people could actually sit down and talk and squash the whole thing?
Well, I think the only way that something could have been resolved as far as putting them two people together to talk is if Puff and Suge would have been able to make that happen. But because Suge was so much the rah-rah, he was as rah-rah as Puff, that's why, to me, and this is my theory, that's why Puff couldn't reach out to a Suge or reach out to anybody in Death Row's camp to try to come to some type of middle ground and try, and try to get, some closure, or to squash everything. When you're a leader, when you're a leader, like Suge is, and you got the same mentality that your artists have, there's no talking to you. You can't talk to neither one of them because
Right.
they're both on the same mindset.
Right.
And it's normally it's not like that. Normally you have somebody that feels a way, and then maybe the person that's, I don't want to say that boss, but somebody that's above them, or somebody that, that's with them, they may have a different perspective. And that wasn't the case from the Death Row side. It was both, you got the artist and the label, or the owner of the label, feeling a certain way. So who can Tough go to try to squash it?
Right.
Can't go to nobody. You know what I mean? Because the whole mindset over there was, they feel away. And so that's the one thing that hurt the most. It's not, it's not about the artist feeling away. It's that the CEO was on the same page as the artist and not thinking about the broader scale of, what we can ready to do here. We can ready to take this somewhere, way out of the realm of it being two rappers beefing.
Right.
So,
well, listen, it's a wild era. Let's switch back to DJing. You were at Hot 97 for a long time, and you've been around some of the great DJs yourself. Some would argue that your laptop is probably worth $1 million with all the songs, released songs, unreleased songs that you got, playlists. What makes a good DJ a great DJ?
It's a great question. What makes a good DJ a great DJ is, I gotta say, ain't no one is to be original. Just be original, be yourself. Whatever yourself is, just be yourself. Don't sound like nobody else. Don't talk like anybody else. Don't play like anybody else. That's the number one thing, is to be yourself. And to, in the age that we're in, as far as laptops and importing music, try to be as much hands-on as possible as far as, what you put in your laptop and what kind, I don't let nobody, there's a lot of DJs that let somebody else handle their laptop as far as importing music and stuff. I didn't have my laptop since 2008. It's been actually 10 years. I've had 10 years I didn't have my laptop. I haven't let not one person touch my laptop as far as importing music or whatever the case is. The day that I'm going to have somebody handle my laptop and import music for me, and, that's the day that I need to quit. You know what I mean? Or whatever the case is. And it's to each his own to other DJs, because there's a lot of DJs that got busy schedules. They really don't have the time. So I'm not really talking about them. I'm talking about, if you're still able to, handle what you import in your laptop and how you want, what kind of direction you want to go in with your music and how you want to play your music, you should be as much hands-on as possible, because at the end of the day, when you playing on the radio, when you're playing at these clubs, it's still you playing. It ain't your handler playing the music. It's you playing the music. So, that's another thing. It's just try to be as much hands-on as you possibly can as a DJ. Be original. The being original is so important, because so many DJs they have no creativity. They listen to what somebody else do, and they just emulate what somebody else do, and it's just, there's so many DJs that's so lazy, and they don't just take the time to just put your mind into what you want to try to do as far as whatever kind of set you want to do at a club, or how you want to play on the radio. It's just, there's no creativity anymore. A lot of DJs just take what somebody else do and they just follow suit, or whatever the case is. So,
what do you mean when you say creativity? When you say creativity, what give me an example from a DJ.
If I play Dreams and Nightmares by Meek Mill a certain way, a DJ may hear me playing it a certain way, and they want to play it the exact same way I play it.
Okay. Instead
of playing it the way that you feel like you should play it. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So, we all have the same records, but it's all about your presence and your delivery of how you play a certain record. And if I play Hypnotize a certain way, and then you come on right behind me and you playing it the same way that I'm playing it. You know, there's no creativity, and
Right.
that really happens a lot in the DJ game, a lot.
Hmm.
Or you hear a DJ talk a certain slang, and then you're actually talking like the DJ, and you're trying to actually emulate the DJ's voice. It's really sad out here. It's really really sad. So just be original. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Just be yourself, man. Be original, and don't there's plenty of times I can hear a DJ and he plays a record that I would never think about playing. And I'll go home and put that record into my set, but I'm still not going to play it the same way that he played it, even though he's the one that put me onto that record.
Right.
That I never thought about playing. Even though I heard him play it, I'm not going to play it the same way that he played it. I'm going to add that record into my library, but I'm going to figure out how Mr. C would play it.
Right. Right.
You know, whereas you got other DJs that's going to hear another DJ play a record that they would not normally play, and they're going to play it exactly how they heard that DJ play it. So you got to be original, man.
Are there different kinds of DJs? For example, what's the difference between a D-Nice and a DJ Clue or a Flex? Are there different types of DJs in their sets?
There's different types of DJs. I always say you got DJs and you got cats that play music.
Mm.
So you got I'm gonna repeat that. You got DJs and you got cats that play music.
Mm.
A DJ is like is very knowledgeable of what they're playing. They just don't play the music. They're very knowledgeable about the music that they're playing. They're very meticulous of how they play records. Everything kind of coincides with one another. Everything is on the same BPM. Everything is kind of, playing very smooth. You're not going out of pocket of how you're playing. That's a DJ. A DJ that just plays music is playing shit any old type of way that they just want to play it. If they, they may go from Migos to Biggie. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
They're just playing it just to be playing.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They're not looking at the genres of where they coming. They coming from one genre to another. They're not looking at that. They may go from Conspiracy 6ix9ine and then go to Ja Rule, right? And I've seen it and I've heard it. So that's a cat that just plays music that don't really know what they're doing. You're just playing, mismatch, anything, whatever works, they just play it, or whatever the case is. But that's the other thing about the difference. So there are differences of DJs, you know what I mean, or whatever the case is. Or you have what, people kind of label you as, you know what I mean? If you understand what I'm saying. Like, people, like, for instance, D-Nice, people may label D-Nice as a corporate DJ.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because he plays at all the big corporate parties and he's playing at all the sponsored parties or whatever the case is. But, you wouldn't put, and I'm going by what people would say about him.
Right.
People would probably say, yo, you can't put D-Nice in a hood party. He can't play in a hood party. Now, me personally, I think D-Nice can play in a hood party. But I'm just telling you how people what kind of categories they put people in. You understand what I'm saying?
Right,
so
right.
They put, people will put pigeonhole D-Nice and put him in the corporate world. And he does corporate parties or whatever the case is. That's his world.
Why would a guy like D-Nice get corporate? What is the difference between some DJs that maybe we would say are more underground versus the D-Nice? Is it because of their playlist? Is it because of who they know? What?
No, it's a combination of who you know. It's a combination of who's backing you. Who's behind you, who's backing you. It's a combination of that, and it's a combination of how you do play. There's a difference of you when you play. When you're doing corporate parties, you got to play different than when you're playing. In Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. It's just apples and oranges.
Right.
So if D-Nice has perfected how to play in those corporate parties, he's going to get the corporate bookings. It doesn't matter how popular a street DJ is. If D-Nice has perfected how to play in the corporate parties, he's going to get the bookings. If Kid Capri has perfected how to play for the older black urban crowd, he's going to get the bookings.
Right.
If Funkmaster Flex you know, has perfected how to play for the young kids, for the trap, for the kids. You know, he's gonna get the booking. So DJs get put in a certain category. You know, the DJs get put in a category mainly by the promoters,
Right.
but it's booking the DJs. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
And sometimes it even gets to a point where it gets a little racial.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? So
Right.
you get like somebody like Camilo, and you say, you know, you got some promoters that say DJ Camilo can only play for a Spanish crowd or a Latin crowd, which is bullshit.
Right.
You know, because Camilo could play for any crowd, or you know what I mean. But because of the color of his skin, they say, you know, that's all he can do. Or even with me, they'll say Mr. C can only play for a black crowd. He can't play for a Latino crowd.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which is bullshit, because I can play for a Latino crowd. So, you know, but mainly that's the promoters that kind of that put that stigma on DJs, and then, you know, you get labeled as being this particular type of DJ or whatever the case is.
Right. You also mentioned you were at Hot 97 for a long time, especially when it first broke into really full scope hip hop. A lot of hip hop purists would say that sometimes the radio has a negative influence on the music. Do you find that to be the case, being in that, and how much control does someone such as yourself have with what you play versus what the company or the radio station suggests you play?
I mean, to answer the first question about radio having an influence on the music that's being played, you know, Hot 97 is only playing the records. You're playing the records that's hot. That's everything. You know, they're playing the record that's the highly requested records.
Right.
So it's not Hot 97's fault that, you know, Migos or Little Uzi, you know, and I'm just using these raps as an example,
Sure.
but, you know, Migos, Little Uzi, or you know, or Little Yachty is getting played. These are the records that are popular with the kids, and you got to also remember the target audience that Hot 97 is trying to attract, which is the younger audience, teenagers, and these are the records that these kids are listening to. So, what is the Hot 97 folks? They're in the business of playing the best records that their listeners is going to be attracted to. So if the kids are saying they want to hear Little Yachty, or they want to hear Migos, or they want to hear Cardi B, that's what Hot 97 as a radio station. They have a job to play the records that's the top requested records that's getting the highest reports, and you know what I mean, and you know what I mean, whatever the case is. So can't blame a radio station for doing that. If
Right.
anything, you know, that's what the kids like. You got to give the kids what they want to hear if you want them to continue to listen to the radio.
Right.
So it goes back to, you know, it goes to the artists making better music, and you know, and even the parents kind of maybe steering their kids to maybe listen to something else. But you know, Hot 97 has a job to do, or any radio station has a job to do, to play the records that are getting the top requests. And if it means if it's a ratchet trap record, or if it means that they may have a little bit of negativity in it, that's not Hot 97's fault. You
Right.
can't blame that on the radio station.
We come from an era where the DJ would break a lot of records first. What are some of the biggest records that you broke, or records that you maybe you wanted to break and didn't, and someone else did? Do you have any of those?
Oh, I have a lot of those. I mean, you know, G Unit. You know, I was like one of the first DJs to play Wankster, 50 Cent, which kind of just started off the whole G Unit movement. So you know that. The last record, I left Hot 97 in November of 2014. The last record I broke, the last two records that I broke on Hot 97, and I broke in New York, period, was Fetty Wap, with Trap Queen and Bobby Shmurda with Hot Nigga. Like, those are the last two records that I actually broke in Hot 97 before I left. You know, the list goes on and on. Alicia Keys, you know, I broke. The list goes on and on, man.
Did you have any that you didn't, that you could have broke but didn't? You know, that you had and said, I'm not gonna put this one out there.
I don't really. I don't. You know, with me, when I had my run at for 21 years, I was there. I was pretty much on top of everything as far as the new music and stuff like that. So there wasn't there wasn't things where I could be like, I regret that I didn't break this record or anything like that. But there's records that maybe Flex may have played before me, or whatever, or Enough may have played before me, and vice versa. There was records that I played before them, or whatever the case is, or what have you. But nothing that I regret. Nothing.
Right.
Because in radio, sometimes you may not hear what the next DJ may hear, and then sometimes you may hear, the DJ play it, and then it makes you give this perspective on liking the record. But to say about a regret, nah, that has never happened.
How about
but plenty of times, maybe a Flex or Enough may have played, or Cypress Sound may have played a record before me, and then it makes me look at the record a little bit differently for me to start playing the record.
any Kane or Big unreleased music that you got?
Oh yeah, I got a lot of Kane. Kane didn't really put out too much unreleased. I mean, Kane didn't really do as much unreleased stuff. I got in my laptop now. I definitely got 2 unreleased songs on Kane that we did that was scheduled to be on the Prince of Darkness album. I have 1 or 2. I definitely have 2 unreleased songs on Kane. Biggie, I have a lot more unreleased stuff, or even original versions of songs, like with other, there could be certain songs that you've heard, or whether it was on Ready to Die that had it had a certain beat to it, but then the original song was from a sample that couldn't get cleared. So I have a way more stuff on unreleased stuff on Biggie than I do on Kane.
Listen, you've been in this thing. You're a legend, Mr. C. You've been in this thing for a minute. Before I let you get out of here, I got to ask you. You were there. I just got to ask you. People argue and debate all day. Who's the best MC between Big Daddy Kane, KRS-One, Rakim? Obviously, people talk about the Kane and Ra situation, that should have been a battle, and maybe it wasn't. I personally, I've always thought Kane himself said that he would have preferred the KRS-One versus Kane battles, the battle he wanted. Who do you see when if all the marbles are on the table? Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, KRS-One. I know Kane's your man, but who you got on that?
Well, let me ask you this question: are you into sports at all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you know who Joe Montana is, right?
Of course.
If you ask Joe Montana, who's the greatest wide receiver of all time, who is he gonna say?
I guess he's gonna probably go with Jerry Rice.
You just answered my question. I'm going with Kane all day. I'm going with Kane to the wheels fall off. I'm going with Kane through the fire. Because I know what that man is capable of. I've seen it from high school all the way till 2018. It ain't like Kane don't still have it even now.
Right.
You know what I mean, or whatever. So I'm going with the bro that I done went through the fire with, through the wars with, through the records and the success. I'm going with my brother, man. That's it.
Now, so if we play the same theory, Nas, Jay-Z, B.I.G. Do I even need to ask that, or are we Joe Montana? Are we Joe Montana?
Nah. I tell you like this, though. I'll tell you like this with Nas, Biggie, and Jay-Z. I'll tell you this. Biggie is the greatest rapper of all time. Jay-Z is the greatest rapper alive.
You've heard it here from Mr. C. Mr. C, my brother, I appreciate the time that you took on here. If someone out there wants to get a hold of you, they want to book you, how do they get a hold of you?
You can hit me on my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Instagram and Twitter is at DJ Mr. C, MISTERCEE. My Facebook is my real name, which is Calvin, like Calvin Klein, CALVIN, LeBron, LEBRUN. And then in apostrophes, it says DJ Mr. C. But you can type in DJ Mr. C on the Facebook and it'll still come up. If you want to book me, you can just DM me on those my social media pages or whatever cases that I just mentioned, and definitely I'll get back to you.
Mr. C, we appreciate you stopping out. # Basement Floor is Real. My name's Dave Cannon. Basement Floor is Real. Mr. C, we're out of here. Peace.